If you're under work pressure, life pressure, relational pressure, but you are trying to stay resilient and you do not know how, this episode is for you. Keep watching. Welcome back to the Chasing a Greater Vision podcast. I'm your host, Rickey Jasper. Today's topic and episode, we talk about how to be resilient and how to maintain resiliency when you're under life pressure. That can come from so many different ways. It can come from your career stress when you're trying to improve. It can come from relational things that come up. It can come from just anything that you care about that adds pressure to your life that you want to be resilient. So at a high level, because we give the tips up front. Number one, you want to add challenging goals to your fitness routine. All of these will help you add resilience. And it's an interesting way, but I'll talk about it. Number two, practice mindfulness. I know you probably hear it a lot, but it's very important. Number three, take micro breaks. And number four, reflect on past successes. So why is this important? Life can beat us up in so many different ways. The one thing that I've learned and that I've seen is that as I've progressed through life, things have gotten more complex in a great way, but I've also tried to simplify things, right? So there's fewer things that I care about, but the things that I care about, I care deeply about. And when I care deeply about something, I can feel like I'm under pressure to make sure that those, things maintain, that I'm still progressing, and I have to increase my resiliency, right? We want to improve at work. We want to make sure that we're showing up as the best partner to our relationship, our marriage. We want to make sure that we're building a life that we want. These things can add on so much pressure. I don't have kids yet, so I won't even talk about that, but I know my friends who have kids are like, that adds on another layer of pressure because you really are even more focused on somebody else's life than your own. So, whenever I have kids, I will be talking about that. So I'll leave that one where it's at. That's a pet peeve of mine when people talk about things that they don't really have experience with, but it is what it is. So I'll talk about what I know. Now, the issue with this is we can't shrink to a comfort level that we want to. We have to expand, right? When you feel pressure, and the reason why you want to build resiliency is because you actually want to expand. You want to be able to overcome. You want to be bigger than the situation. You want to have a mind that is bigger than what's in front of you, and you want to make sure that your actions follow, right? So this is not hey, let's just be comfortable and shrink and find what's comfortable. No. It's because we want to expand. Now, how do we do this? How do we stay resilient when we're under all the pressure from all the things that we find important? Number one, you want to add challenging goals to your fitness routine. Now, this sounds so odd because it doesn't seem like it's one of those boxed tips or whatever, but it's so important, and I've learned it through running. I've learned it through putting myself through a lot of hard functional training aspects, right? What I've realized is when I put myself through a hard run or through a hard workout, hard functional workout, I am exposing myself to something challenging that sometimes I don't necessarily want to do, and I'm committing to getting through it no matter how I feel, no matter what comes my way. And there's other things in life that happen, and it's like, how do you get through that, and how are you resilient when you've never built the muscle of being resilient on a day-to-day basis in something that's a controlled environment, right? I'm someone where I'm like, hey, put me in a controlled environment so I can work on and build a skill, so when the real thing hits, boom, I'm ready. It's like, that's why I really try to focus on being prepared with things that happen, right? When I come to this podcast, I do my best to prepare. Mason and I will look over notes, we'll look over headlines, we'll look over titles and things like that. We prepare so when the camera's on, when it hits, I'm not sitting back just like, oh, I don't know what to say. I haven't kind of mentally prepped this. I don't know the angle, and I'm just kind of rambling, right? Sometimes I ramble, but for the most part, it's putting myself in a controlled environment that I'm challenging myself physically. So when other things in life hits, I'm sitting back and I'm saying, hey, I know where my mind goes to when I want to quit. I know where my mind goes to when I'm physically out of it. I'm mentally out of it, but there's still 30 minutes on the clock, and I got to get through this hard workout. I'm way out here. It's hot in Texas. I'm way out here. I'm 5-6 miles away from home, and I'm still running, and I got to get back home, right? So it's like I put myself in those situations, and it helps me build that resiliency muscle. So when the time comes, boom, you're ready. It's like saying, oh, I want to go in the gym. If you're saying I want to, bench 225, and one day I got to bench 225, and it's like, okay, but when you're going in the gym and you're just putting up the bar, it's like, well, if you know that's going to hit someday, well, why don't we try to progress towards that? So when you have to do it, you're ready to do it. You have to build that muscle. Number two, practice mindfulness. It's taken me some time and I'm still working on it, but developing that it is what it is mentality. Like sometimes you can't fight what is, you just have to allow it to be. If you're trying to exert so much energy onto being so upset of the pressure that you have and the responsibilities that you have, you're exerting energy on things that you can't necessarily change. If you can change it, change it. If you can't, then what you have to do is you have to figure out a way to be resilient around it and not fight it and allow it to be. You can only control the present moment. And that's the beautiful thing is moments in seconds happen, boom, boom, boom. And when you realize that you can't control the past, you can't control the future, you can only control your actions in the present moment, it's freeing because all of the things that you're worrying about, it allows you to like let go of the worry because you're like, for me, like I can worry a lot about the future. That's my thing. I sometimes get wrapped up in the past and the future. And when I get wrapped up in the future, I worry like crazy. When I realize like, if I can just be mindful in the present moment and do the best that I can with this moment, that's all that matters. It takes the pressure off of everything else because the future is not guaranteed and the past is already past, right? So if you can just let go and just be mindful and be in the present moment and be and mindfulness isn't not just sitting still. It is sometimes, but it's also doing an action that you're mindful of the moment and you're not worried about anything else in the future because you put moments together and you do the right thing on a consistent basis. That stuff in the future is going to take care of itself. Number 3, take micro breaks. This allows you to zoom out and it allows you to change your perspective. So I've said this on multiple podcasts and it's so important. When I know I need to be resilient, I know I have a lot of things coming at me. Like I said, in the past, been very reactive to things. And instead of being reactive, it's like, hey, I actually have to take a break because instead of being so on target and so just locked in, I have to zoom out. When I take a break, I can have some mental clarity. I've talked about this on other podcasts. Carly and I, before we got married, before we even moved to Texas, we were like, hey, let's meet with the couples counselors and everything because we really wanted to make sure that we have a successful marriage. We want to make sure that we have a successful relationship. And the one thing that I had talked about that was an issue of mine was like, hey, like I can get wrapped up in thought patterns or whatever, and it's hard for me to get out of them because I'm so locked in on something. Now, this works really well on things that are important, things that matter, things that are constructive. It doesn't work well when there are things that are not important and that don't matter. And the one thing that she said to me, which is you can watch YouTube videos on it. Like I said, my guy Joe Dispenza talks about it a lot. Neurons that wire together, fire together, right? So whenever there's a stimulus and if you do an action and then it's going to give you some sort of reward feedback, and then your neurons are going to start to lock in with each other. Now, the less that you do that, the new neural pathways that you create, which is a great thing. So for me, instead of just taking a break, I would just be reactionary about whatever it is. And for me, it was like, hey, take a 3-day break on whatever it is. So if you are wrapped up in a thought pattern, just allow it to sit and allow it to be for 3 days, because eventually what's going to happen, it's going to float away. And it might come back, but it's going to float away. And I realized, I was like, oh, I don't have to react to every thought that happens in my way. I don't have to react to every little thing. And if it gets too much, at the time, it's like, oh, I want to react, whatever, and keep going down that same neural pathway that I've ingrained. How about I take a break and create a new one and focus on something different? When I focus on something different, I realize, hey, I'm more resilient than I thought I was, because instead of succumbing to what I felt was the pressure of responding, reacting in the same way, I can sit back and feel the discomfort and go back to my point 2. It is what it is, and let it sit and just keep things moving. And over time, what I thought mattered so much, I don't even think about it. It just never even matters. And if it does pop in my head, it's like, it's not the same emotional charge, right? So that is also another way that you build resilience. Take breaks, make sure you zoom out, gain some perspective, take the time that you need so those neurons are not just like linking up. I hope I'm saying that right. If you're a brain scientist, boom, get at me in the comments. I'd love to have a conversation. I love that stuff. But neither here nor there. Number 4, reflect on past successes. I love this. I've noticed this so much when it comes to fitness. I've noticed it because I am someone, I do the same thing all the time. Like when it comes to fitness, it's just about consistency. You can change things up every now and then, but the bulk of it is like consistency. When it comes to running, I have a different types of runs, but at the end of the day, my legs are moving at some sort of pace. That is all that it is, right? But when I get in tough runs and I'm like, ooh, okay, like my mileage is getting up and everything, I've realized now I have so much more confidence because I'm looking at the past year and a half and the mileage that I've done. And I'm like, wait a second. No, I've done this. I've been here. I know how this feels. It's no problem, right? So I'm a lot more calm and I'm a lot more resilient because I'm reflecting on past successes. I'm reflecting on the fact that I've done this. That's why challenging yourself at something, it gives you the reps. It gives you the at-bats in a controlled environment. So you want to make sure that you remind yourself of the things that you have gotten past and the pressure that you've gotten past and done it in a successful way, because what that's going to do is that is going to give you the confidence that you need. And I'm telling you, I have good friends. So Corey Gray was one of my best friends in my wedding and everything. He was the content director for 413 Apparel. There was a time where I was going through a tough time, and he had sent me this long text message, and it was the most hype man text message of like, who I am, what I've done, all this other type of stuff. And this was probably 6-7 years ago. And I remember it, and I screenshot it, and I was like, wait a second. I forgot all of these things. I didn't even focus on that. I kept focusing on the negative. I kept focusing on the failures. I kept focusing on how I felt in the moment. I never even stopped to take a second to look at all of the things that I had gone through and overcame and all of the things that I had actually accomplished. And I realized, and in that moment, it made me feel so good. I felt so empowered. I was like, I was back in the game. You have to do that to yourself from time to time. There are times now where I'm like, I got to look at everything, and I'm like, okay, there's more responsibilities that are getting taken on. Boom, we just bought land. Boom, we want to put a tiny home on it. Boom, okay, now we got the house. Boom, we want to have kids. All of these things, and I'm sitting back and I'm like, okay, this is a lot. I want to grow this podcast. Want to grow the vlogs. Want to expand life with Carly and everything. And I'm like, okay, this is a lot. But I sit and I look back at when I was working, 2 jobs, and I was doing 413 Apparel, and I was doing all this other type of stuff, and just in hitting rock bottom financially. And I'm like, wait a second, now I'm in a better financial place, and things are going well, and there's some peace in my life. Okay, like I can handle this because I've handled a lot worse and a lot harder things when it comes to financial, when it comes to life and in career. Before, I've handled layoffs, 4 layoffs, and like 2 contracts, and I've handled that stuff. So I'm looking at the times that I've overcome, and I'm like, oh, I'm resilient to handle this phase of life. When you look at your life, there are times that have kicked you in the face that you've been so resilient, and I want you to remember those. Write those down, look at them, and remind yourself of who you are, whose you are. Because hey, I'm a religious dude. I feel like God's got a plan for all of us, and He's got great things for all of us. We lock into to the gifts and talents that He's given us, because those gifts are meant to give to other people. But when you lock in, I'm telling you, and you reflect on your past successes, you will see how much more powerful you are in the future. So to wrap this all up, number 1, add challenging fitness goals. It allows you to work your resilience muscle in a controlled environment. Number 2, practice mindfulness. It is what it is sometimes. Sometimes what life gives you is what life gives you, and you just have to allow it to be, and you can only control that minute and that moment. Number 3, take micro breaks. Micro breaks allow you to zoom out, allow you to gain some perspective. And number 4, reflect on past successes. I just went on that. Reflect on what you've done, on who you are. That will give you the confidence for where you are going. So I hope that this episode and message helped you out. If it did, like, comment, subscribe. If you don't, that's fine too, because hopefully I'll see you in the next episode. Peace. For free resources, paid resources, and one-on-one coaching with me directly for fitness coaching and performance coaching using my life coding system, go to RickeyJasperII.com, and I will see you there, and we'll talk directly, and we'll make it happen.